Hey, how's it going? And welcome to another video. All right, it's been a little bit, I think, since I've ever done any kind of like real trailer breakdown sort of video. But I figured this was kind of an exception because this is a game I've been looking forward to for like basically 7 years at this point. This game was announced in 2016 and it hasn't gotten an actual trailer since 2017. And I think there's a lot of pretty interesting stuff to talk about in the trailer. This game is like actually pretty different from what I think I was expecting. Ironically, kind of in the fact that it reminds me a lot more of games from like the SMT and Persona series than I was initially expecting. You can tell this game has a ton of that Hashino era Persona, and Soejima is doing the art obviously, so his art for sure has a certain really recognizable style and kind of a tendency to color and draw things a certain way. But yeah, let's get into it and see what we can kind of glean from this trailer here. Okay, so kind of right off the gate, this is sort of a concept that I'm really interested in. Whatever it is they're alluding to here. This whole what if our reality is their utopia thing. Like, I don't know if this is the direction the game will end up going in, but I think it would be a pretty interesting idea if this ends up being kind of like a like a Kingdom Hearts 3 scenario, or kind of like what Kingdom Hearts 4 is doing, where sort of like our world does exist, sort of coinciding with this world. Personally, I think that is a lot more interesting than the kind of typical isekai scenario where somebody from the modern day ends up in a fantasy world. So I don't know if that'll end up playing any kind of like physical role in the game, or if this is more of a sort of theming thing they have going on. But either way, the whole kind of like modernity compared to this fantasy sort of older setting thing, I think is really interesting. And it's also a theme that Atlus has kind of played around with a lot. Like, Persona 5 obviously had a lot to do with sort of the struggles of modern day Japan, and Catherine had a lot to do with sort of modern relationships. Like, is the idea of marriage sort of an outdated concept, or what's sort of the quote-unquote best choice for people when it comes to relationships? And I think kind of in general, when you look back on pretty much the entirety of Atlus's works, that's been sort of a prevalent thing, is just like modernity compared to these more fantastical elements. Like, the original Megami Tensei is about a dude who uses technology to summon demons. So right from sort of the inception of the series, that's been there. Like Strange Journey is another good example of that. That whole game is basically about kind of like modern society, what they're doing to the earth. And so this definitely feels like a concept that feels pretty sort of like true to Atlus, while also being applied in kind of a unique way, because it's a fantasy game that's more so drawing upon sort of the foibles of modern man. And we'll see a little bit of that as we kind of get into the trailer. Okay, so throughout a lot of the trailer, you'll see these dudes with these sort of like eye symbols either on their heads or developing. But you'll see this guy with the horns has them. In a second, you'll see there's these people who seems like they're getting them for the first time. And the dialogue here is going, "Whosoever hath truly earned the greatest faith of the citizenry shall ascend to the throne." And then there's the fucking Majora's Mask mood, or whatever this thing is. But yeah, I think you can already kind of see the seeds of another sort of classic Atlus, and I think this is kind of just like a JRPG thing in general, is incorporating a lot of especially kind of Abrahamic religious symbols, and using essentially kind of like foreign religion as as like an aesthetic, I guess. So I think religion is for sure going to end up being kind of one of the more pivotal plot points and sort of theming elements of it, which again is another pretty classic Atlus sort of thing. Considering you fight like literally God in a lot of the SMT games, and most of the conflicts in a lot of those games has to do with the classic kind of like God versus the devil. And this just seems like a very, very JRPG thing to include in a game, which I'm totally down for. Like, y'all know the final boss is going to be God, right? There ain't no way this Japanese role-playing game is gonna skip out on a chance for the final boss to be some sort of like Abrahamic depiction of God, right? Oh yeah, so here's our protagonist. I remember when I was streaming, like kind of talking about the reveal of the game, somebody pointed out that this character looks like the love child of Aegis and the Persona 3 protagonist, and I totally see it. And also he's got a little fairy buddy, which is cool. So yeah, whatever this thing is really interesting and very creepy. Like you can see in the trailer, he seems to be sort of absorbing some kind of energy from the people. So yeah, definitely getting a lot of kind of like Old Testament sort of vibes of whatever this thing is, being a very sort of you sacrifice stuff to me kind of guy. You know, again, very similar to how God appears in SMT. Alright, I'm trying to kind of pause on a lot of these different frames because there's a lot we can kind of look at. So in this screenshot, my man Russell says, over 10 years he has languished under this curse. How much longer can his body hold out? And then the narration says His Majesty killed in his own bed. So it seems pretty likely to me that this guy is meant to be some sort of royal figure. I don't know if this is the king himself, or if this is some other member of the royalty. This person might be like a prince, or maybe a princess even. It's kind of hard to tell. I assume they're talking about this person laying on this stone. But they say it's a he, but at least to me this looks like a woman, right? So I don't know, maybe they're just a hot boy, who knows? But either way, this is definitely some type of royal figure, because you can see there's a crown, and then there's a sword and a scepter. And then the narration obviously mentions His Majesty killed in his own bed. So I think that's probably going to be one of the sort of jumping off points for the story, is the death of this, presumably this king. And the rest of it might kind of revolve around trying to undo this curse, because you can see these, like, spooky-looking thorns. I assume that has something to do with whatever the curse is. So that could be what's going on here. Yes, okay, so one thing that I think is kind of interesting is the fact that he's on a skateboard. You know, he was a skater boy. He said see you later boy, but yeah, so just from the UI, we could see that there is, in fact, kind of like a day system going on. Because, like, you can see in the right there, it says, Afternoon Flames Day. So you'll kind of see throughout this trailer, this game has a lot more of that, like, Persona DNA than I was expecting. This seems like it's, in a lot of ways, sort of just, like, fantasy Persona. Which I'm kind of down for, but I was sort of surprised that, you know, when the game was first announced, I was sort of under the impression that this would be more of a kind of clean break from Persona for Hashino. But I don't know, it seems like this game has definitely drank a lot of the Persona juice. And then you can kind of see the mumblings from people talking about how it seems like the royal family is basically done for. And the environments definitely look pretty big. Like, this seems to be a much more open space than what we've kind of gotten previously. Since in the past, like, especially Persona games, the areas you could explore were really not that big. But it seems like in this one, they're definitely going for more of a, like, open world experience. And yeah, you can also see another group of people talking about, first, His Highness the Prince. So I think that kind of gives more credence to the idea that whoever we saw just a second ago is the prince. Of course, we got my man Soejima on the art, like I said. Alright, and so here we have what seems to be kind of like your starting party. We have the protagonist. Over here we have, I presume this is the same elf that we saw in the, like, teaser art. You know, for the longest time, that elf was kind of, like, what I associated Project ReFantazio with, because since for the longest time, that art of the elf was basically all we had to go off of, that and, like, a couple other pieces of art, so yeah, it's cool to see that she ended up kind of, like, surviving. You know, every now and again when it comes to games, there will be these sort of, like, concept characters they come up with that never actually make it in, but yeah, she's seems like one of your starting party members, which is pretty cool. Then there's another dude over here. The way this guy's dressed gives me pretty strong, like, SMT4 energy, which makes sense considering, you know, both of those games sort of, like, SMT4 kind of starts in what feels like a similar setting to what this whole game is going to be. That sort of, like, medieval, kind of European getup he has going on. Oh yeah, also they got Meguro on the tracks, which is pretty cool considering Meguro isn't even, like, an Atlus employee anymore. A while ago, he went and decided to kind of go freelance, so yeah, it's great to see him still, like, doing music. I mean, these guys are kind of just like an iconic trio, right? Like, Hashino directing, Soejima doing the art, and then Meguro on the music. So it's great to see all three of them kind of working together. Alright, here we have Norris. And we can also see a little bit of the world map. There's not really a super whole lot that we can kind of pick through here, but one thing that you will notice is that all the different locations have specific weather. Like, it all says that they're cloudy, so I assume that there will be kind of, like, cycling weather throughout the game. Maybe it'll work kind of like how, like, Mementos did in P5, where the weather actually affects what's going on in there. So we'll definitely see some kind of playing around with that system, like maybe certain enemies only show up in certain weathers, or... But then we could see the protagonist going down. I presume the thing we're gonna see in a second is like, these are the same thing, because like, the pattern on the grates here looks basically the same, but it seems like your method of transportation for moving through kind of big distances is whatever this thing is. This fucking walking boat. Like, it's got these big legs that it uses to kind of move around. And then you can see, like, somebody in the cockpit, so... Yeah, this game is for sure less of a kind of, like, strictly realistic fantasy, and more so kind of like a weird sort of fucky fantasy game where there's stuff like, you know, the leg boat. But something interesting you can also make out in the bottom over here, the YouTube pause thing is kind of covering it up a little bit, but you can see there's a button prompt to pull up a calendar, and then you can also see there's a button for Traveler's Voices. And if I had to guess, I'm pretty sure this is going to operate pretty similarly to how the, like, the Thieves Network was in Persona 5, or whatever that was called. You know, the thing that you could pull up to see what people did on specific days and how they kind of spent their time. I assume this is going to have sort of a similar system where you can check out, like, what people did on individual days. Alright, and then we have coming up here the menu. This menu looks sick, dude. Wait, I'm trying to get, oh, fuck, I'm trying to get, like, a better shot at it. Everything in this trailer goes by so quick. Here we go. Alright. So yeah, it looks pretty similar to a lot of the menus from some of the previous games in the series. Like, obviously, you have your skills, your items, equipment, party. Not anything too out of the ordinary, but one interesting little thing that you could see here in the bottom right is a counter for mag. And one thing that I've seen people speculating on is that mag stands for magnetite, which was a mechanic in a lot of the older SMT games where, in order to keep demons, like, in your party activated, you had to use up this resource called magnetite. Like, for example, you would take a step and then a demon would use up a certain amount of magnetite, and that was kind of their way of balancing out you having, you know, access to all these demons. Magnetite hasn't been a thing in these games in a very, very long time, so... It'd be kind of interesting if this game ends up using a system that's sort of similar to magnetite. Like, we'll see in a second what that could theoretically be used for. Like, actually, I guess I'll just let it play. So, alright, here we have your party's equipment screen. And you can see, for example, Traveling Boy, who's our protagonist, is considered a seeker. Stroll, who's our SMT4 looking boy, he's a warrior. Hulkenberg is the name of the elf. Probably the least feminine name I've ever heard in my life, Hulkenberg. Sounds like the name of a bouncer at a club. But yeah, man, you don't want me to get Hulkenberg on your ass. And then we have Heismay, who's a thief. And we also have, interestingly, a navigator. So yeah, very, very similar to Persona. I assume she will be fulfilling a pretty similar kind of role. Sort of like analyzing enemies' weaknesses and stuff. And then we can also see in the right, this thing over here, which looks a lot like a Persona. Like, I know I hate to be the guy who's just like, wow, this looks so much like Persona. But like, come on, man. And you can also see it says here, learns a wide array of versatile skills, including wind magic, single target healing, and attack buffs. And then you can also see that every one of these guys has one of whatever these things are next to them. So I think what is probably going on here is you can essentially equip whatever these guys are, and that will probably change what your class is. And I say that because, like, okay, so you look at this guy, right, and he's carrying a sword. And then you look at the sword for the Seeker icon, and it looks like the exact same sword. So I think that's for sure one way that you can look at this, is that it kind of works similar to how, like, Persona 1 and 2 work, where you can kind of just swap out the personas, and each of, like, whatever these things are kind of affects your job in a different way. So, like, Hulkenberg, for example, right now has essentially, like, a tank sort of thing equipped, and that's what's making her a knight. Since you can also see that they have ranks. So, like, Heismay is the only one whose rank isn't maxed out. I'm going to... Oh, it's so quick. Okay. So, a lot to check out here. So one thing that I'm immediately noticing is that Stroll is something different in this fight compared to what he was a second ago. Like, a bit ago it said that he was a warrior, and now it says he's a fighter. So, like, you go back here, he was a warrior, and then we cut back to this battle, and now he's a fighter. So maybe these jobs kind of, like, rank up and become different stuff. Alright, so... a lot to look at here. Man, where do we even start? Okay, so it seems like for our options here, we have archetype, call power. I assume that the archetypes are whatever these sort of like persona-like things are. So it seems like that's how you use a lot of your kind of skills and abilities. You call upon these archetypes or whatever. Then you have weapon, wield arm. Seems like that's kind of like your basic sort of standard attack. Items, of course. Then you have a guard to raise your defense. And then you have synthesis. No idea what synthesis consists of. Maybe you like team up with one of your party members or whatever. And then there's also an option for retry, turn back the clock. So it seems like if something goes wrong in the fight, you can kind of like turn it back a couple of turns, which sounds nice and scrubby. I don't think I'll be using that myself. I like these enemies over here, these walking teeth. But you can also see up in the top here, these little, like, crystalline looking things. Oh shit, I pressed play and it skipped a frame and now I can't see it anymore. But yeah, you can see these little kind of like crystalline things, and it seems like this game is going to use essentially what is the press turn combat system from SMT, where if you hit an enemy's weakness, you get another action. Which, you know, I'm totally down for. I think that, like, press turn is maybe the greatest RPG combat system ever designed. That shit is just so much fun. So if that's kind of just how this works, then I'm down for it. Right, so then we can see when you pull up the actual synthesis screen, some of your abilities. Like I said, this game has a ton of SMT DNA. So first of all, you can see like Rider of the Blade, for example, does medium physical light damage to one enemy. And then you can also see literally just a buff from the SMT series in Mataru Kaja. And you can also see Tetra Break. So it seems like they're borrowing at least a lot of the kind of like utility names for stuff. But it also seems like a lot of the elemental spells are going to have different names. Like you have Gasic here, which seems to be replacing like Garu. So yeah, anybody who's used to having those names like Taru Kaja, Suku Kaja, and so on, it seems like we'll be pretty right at home here. Says, okay, so this is really interesting. It appears that this game has essentially social links or confidant. Man, look at this character. God damn, she pink. But yeah, it seems like throughout your journey, you're going to end up meeting these people and, forming bonds with them. I feel like I've heard this somewhere before. It's like right on the tip of my tongue. I know there's a series that kind of revolves around this concept of like, you know, meeting new people and forming connections with them and kind of increasing your own strength through those bonds. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, feel free to leave a comment. It's escaping my mind at the moment. But yeah, I guess this game just has social links, or, you know, people that you'll meet alongside your journey. So, for example, we have a small child, then we have man in the trench coat, that chick, this girl. Does she have 3 eyes? I think she has 3 eyes. But yeah, you can see here, it shows up for like 1 second. You have a rank. It seems like, what does it go up to? 8? Yeah, it goes up, there's 8 slices. So yeah, this is really interesting and not something that I was expecting at all for this game to basically have social links. And then we can see whatever is happening here. He's like skateboarding on, I don't even know. Actually, wait, is that a sword? Wait, he's skateboarding on his sword. I thought he was on like an actual skateboard. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Like, this is clearly the moon in the background. I don't know if he's fucking out of space or we're just really high up in the air, but you will notice in the bottom right here, their jobs have changed again. Now, she's a magic knight, he's a swordmaster, and he's a magic seeker. But the only one whose archetype, it seems like, has changed is the protagonist. Like, this is a different guy. And it seems like the rest of them don't have any in this screenshot. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. Maybe, like, changing your job is independent of the thing that you have equipped, like your archetype. But who knows? Alright, so then we have the protagonist reading some kind of book, and Gallica is saying, so he sees a strange light shining in the sky. The way it's written, I feel like this light is meant to be the key to the new world or something. So whatever the new world happens to be, it seems like an interesting concept. I'm assuming right now that the new world is sort of like essentially our world. I think that would be pretty interesting. Let's see, here we have a look at an area. It seems like they're in some kind of like volcanic cave or something. Looks really cool. And then we see, okay, so this is our like after the battle screen. This looks sick. Yo, this is me and the squad rolling up, dude. And then we can see that after the battle, you gain experience, but you also gain A EXP. I assume A EXP is for your archetypes. So it seems like this works kind of similar to how it does in, like, you know, SMT, for example, where your demons are kind of counted as their own entities. And so they level up, like, independently of the actual character they're equipped to. Yeah, then we have... I don't know what the fuck is going on here. He's like... I don't know, he took a perk 30 or something. Here we have a look at some more of the characters. This seems to be the same girl from a little bit ago with the 3 eyes. And then there's this character over here with this, like, kind of dotted dress. I don't think we saw her in the trailer. And then there's also a guy in the top right whose face we don't see. That might be the same guy that we saw a second ago from around this point. I'm not sure if that's the same guy or not, but... yeah, maybe these guys might end up, like, following you along your journey, and they're not gonna just, like, static. Maybe they're, like, not combatants, but they're still along the journey with you. Look at this dude. Hey, yo, what'd that tongue do? Let's see, here we are in, Academia. Look how cool this fucking guy is. Yeah, so it seems like you go to the Academia to, like, improve your archetypes. Like, you see here, it says learning archetypes, inheriting skills, and then Seeker's Research and Lectures. Should be fun to kind of play around with whatever these things are. Okay, and here we have, what appear to be social stats. We have... your courage, your wisdom, tolerance, eloquence, and your imagination. So I'd assume these are going to work pretty similarly to how they do in Persona. I'd imagine there's a lot of characters that are kind of locked behind not having high enough stats. I assume these will work more or less the same way they do in Persona. Oh yeah, here he goes. Here's my dude. Going all Usagi Yojimbo on him. Yeah, the shots here of them with, like, the glowing eyes, they look really cool. Oh, fuck, what did I just miss? Everything goes by so fast. Shit! I'm trying to get, like, a good look at it. Fuck! It's not happening, guys. Alright, here we go. But yeah, here's our party screen. Man, they all look so cool. The art on all these characters is, like, really beautiful. And you can also see here that it says front for all of them. So I assume this is going to have kind of like a front and back mechanic going on, where you're going to want to keep a lot of your kind of frontline brawler characters up in the front, and then there's a back spot for, like, mages and healers and stuff. Oh man, look at this dude. Look at this fucking SMT boss. God, what a horrifying thing. Then you fight a Dragon. Yeah, here we can kind of see. Wait, what the fuck? He's a soul hacker? His job right now is set to soul hacker. What the heck? So yeah, you can see a couple of the different archetypes here, right? Like right now, she has this sort of red dude equipped. Bro, my homie's a soul hacker. I hope this game has a lot of just like really kind of weird, funny, sort of different jobs you could play as. I think that'd be really cool. Obviously, there's a lot of like classics. Like right now, you can see she's a paladin, and then there's like ninja and stuff and mages, but I don't know. I like when these games get a little bit more kind of creative with them and do shit like soul hacker or trickster. Yeah, so you can see here he got hit by a critical. This is the mirror of reality. Hey, what the cat doing? Oh, what did I miss there? Something that shows up for like... Yeah, so this is something that's pretty interesting, is this allusion to seemingly modern-day society. Like, you can see the outlines of, like, skyscrapers and stuff, and then you can see a car over there, so... Yeah, they're definitely alluding to some kind of connection to, like, modern-day society. Fantasy is more than an empty dream. Metaphor ReFantazio. In 2024. Alright, so that was a lot. we talked about this our minute 45-second trailer for quite a while, but yeah, I'm really, really excited for this one. This game seems awesome. I'm so glad this is not just like a dead project. No, I was getting worried for a while there when we hadn't gotten any kind of trailers or like significant updates for the longest, but no, they actually pulled it off. So yeah, I might end up doing some more kind of like trailer breakdowns or discussions or whatever when we get a new one. So I can't wait for this game. I'm like super hyped for this one. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.